All right, comrades, welcome back. So we pick up back at reclamation site number 1, and we're there because we're waiting for some support before we go back and try to rescue Hammering, Liverin, and Elig. So back at reclamation site number 1, Shifty is reporting that the Social government thinks that the elevator was created by a different entity, like they had nothing to do with it, and likely it was a heretic, but it could have also been like the unknown or something else. They want to send Absolute and Mattis out there to kind of like take care of the elevator, take care of the crystal stuff, and make sure that everything's going to work out there. The issue is they're both deployed on like a different mission, so when they finish that up, they'll come help. So what about the rescue of the girls? And they're like, well, if we want to go, we are allowed to go, but we have to go alone. Shifty then tells us that with the permission of the big three, the CEOs, that she was able to get in touch with the squad members of of Alig, Liverin, and Hammering, and that they're going to come. And they arrive, and they are delightful. Fragile from Pathfinder, Trony from Electric Shock, and Drilly from Hammer and Drill. Fragile is extremely taciturn and kind of like sad and scared looking, and she just looks like rough. Nice wreck though. And she says whatever's on her mind as well. Then Trony is like a hikikomori who rides this device and has feet, so she's the best character in the game. She just has her bare feet up. I love it. She's so good. And she like absolutely refuses to leave the site because she's not a fighter and it's hard for her to get around. And she's got like her device because she doesn't like walking. Right? She just wants to lay around. And so she's going to help Shifty by doing stuff remote. And there's like a funny conversation about that. And then Drilly is just kind of like super angry. And she's like, she's got a super attitude, and her and Ians get into it like almost immediately. But she's got a heart of gold and all that, and she's just very concerned about her friend, who is like the sweetest, loveliest person that possibly exists. That's Hammering. So she wants to get going like yesterday. So we head out. Let's see. So as we're walking along, Shifty briefs us, and then before we kind of officially go out, Fragile asks us one thing. She's like, hey, so in case we have to shoot each other because of like the crystals to like help cut arms off or whatever, can you remove our inhibitors? And we're like, yeah, sure. No, that doesn't seem weird at all. So we jump ahead a little bit, and we've already descended down the shaft of the elevator. So we worked our way all the way back. Everything's good. No real big issues, fighting some raptures or whatnot, but nothing crazy. No one's taken, like, people have taken like tiny bits of damage, but not much. Just like scratches and stuff. We then get Shifty to explain that we need to push forward. We're like in this tunnel, and then she's like, it's a pretty straightforward line, just head straight. And then Trony and her start talking about the operation device. The operation device is this top of the line Elysian tech that was developed like 50 years ago for the Great Hope, which, if you remember from previously, is Johan. So this is this operation device we're using, and there's like, I kind of got confused with like the localization here. It seems like that it's one of a kind, but at the same time, Shifty says something about trying to get it to all commanders. So I don't know if it's an issue with they can't develop more because they don't have the tech or the will, or it's so expensive. But they made it specifically for hold up. Sorry, my son was like grabbing wires so he could like tear a TV off a wall. Anyway, oh yeah, and so it has like an AI built into it and stuff, so Shifty can use it to kind of like predict what's going on up ahead, but it's AI. It's like AI now. It's just gonna kind of guess based on like previously understood stuff. So if it's like off, or it's slightly unusually made or too custom made, it's gonna have like a real hard time. So they talk about that, how great it is, and yada yada. And then Drilly and Ian start getting into it because Drilly feels like we abandoned her friends on purpose. So we got them killed on purpose. And I's like, what are you talking about? Why would we do that? Doesn't make any sense. And then, blah, blah, blah. And finally, like, Neon makes some joke about Drilly's name. Like, she starts laughing, and she's like, what? What's wrong with you? And then she jokes around a little bit more. And then she tells Drilly what happened and how Hammering essentially saved them because she noticed that something was going to happen, and she told them to stay back. And then the whole thing collapsed, and that they're going out to save them. And then finally, Drilly like apologizes, and then Ians apologizes for being like a hothead. And Neon does a good job calming everybody down. We start moving forward some more, and then Fragile asks about Liverin, and she's like, "Was she really here to help you guys, like find something?" And we're like, "What?" She's like, "Why was she here on the mission, or was she really on this mission?" And we're like, "Yeah, why?" Did you not know? She gets like real sketchy about answering and like wanders off. After Shima meanders off, us in the counter start talking about how the whole thing with like Liverin is super sketchy and Fragile's being sketchy, and that like I think Ian says something about I'm tired of being betrayed. Can we not do that anymore? And we're like, yeah, we definitely got to keep an eye on that to make sure that doesn't happen. And then Rappy's like, also, no being lovey-dovey and holding hands. And we're like, what? Okay, sure. I can't. We get out of the tunnel and we find this another, like, they say it's a metropolis, right? Covered in crystals. And there's the big crystal cluster that the girls were stuck in earlier. Living in, like, off in the distance, and it looks broken or turned off or whatever. We get up to it and we see that it is broken. Trony points out that there is a brake release lever inside where the girls were. So the idea is that Alig probably saw it, went in to look, told Liverin to come over, and then they got trapped in there somehow, and then the whole thing got moved down the elevator after hammering one up. But there's no girls. But we do find a TV with Boom on it, and so we're like, oh, Boom. Maybe Alig's okay. Like, why would she install? And then someone makes some comment about, like, Alig can install Boom, like, breathing. Like, just see his breathing, so that doesn't say anything. But Trony points out that she had played to a certain level in the game with, like, a whole bunch of health items or health boosters or whatever, so that tells her that she's okay. Fragile freaks out a bit, but we're able to calm her down about finding Liverin and everybody else. And then Raptures show up. After we beat them, we chat about how there is no trace of them in this area. Like, no, they're not dead or whatever, so they're most likely alive, because otherwise we would see something. And so they probably left. And the Raptures didn't get them. And then the whole butt thing comes up, and Fragile freaks out. She's like, oh, you shouldn't be looking at someone's butt if you're not dating them. Like, what? And then we also talk about the unknown being in control of the crystals and how it seems like she is somehow involved with creating this whole area to, like, generate electricity or move electricity around. And that the crystal cluster itself was developed, like, on purpose because it had the brake system so it could be, like, moved around and stuff. And that the idea is that it could gather energy here and then move somewhere else and gather energy there and then move somewhere else and gather energy there. And then Fragile compares it to kind of like moving stuff around inside a warehouse and whatnot, how, like, you got to have stuff moving around so it can be packed and be shipped to certain areas and all that. And she has, like, a very strong interest in logistics, right? Which is partially why she's in the Pathfinder. And her whole thing is, like, delivering packages and whatnot and understanding logistics. So that's good. We eventually get Shifty to pinpoint the tracking device that Hammering had, that Neon gave her, and so we head out towards that. And then we get to the spot where Shifty's like, here it is, and we're looking around but don't see Hammering anywhere. And then Drilly starts calling out very loudly, and we're like, Drilly, calm down. Like, they're going to get Raptures to come out. Rappy does that. And Drilly ignores her, and then a Rapture does show up, and so Shifty tells us that the signal for the tracking device is in the Rapture, essentially. So then Drilly screams and, like, charges it, so we all follow. After destroying it, Drilly starts, like, digging into the Rapture, like, finding, and eventually she finds the tracking device, and it's covered in blood, which who knows what that means. And then she starts freaking out, like, where's Hammering? And then Fragile, like, comforts her, and Drilly starts to cry because she's so stressed out about her missing friend and making sure she's okay and whatnot. It's pretty sad times. And we talk about, I think Fragile mentions, like, hey, there's a building over here. Let's head up there, and we can look around and see what we can find, and maybe we can see something. Up top, we see that the whole place is covered in crystals. And Fragile tells us that she doesn't have the capability to really use her pathfinding capabilities because it's, like, so disjointed and so disorganized, and that, like, there's no way to, like, really tell where's that or what's going on. And we're like, okay, well, we need to send a signal out. Like, maybe we can send up a flare or do something like that so that we can draw the attention of anybody that might be around. And then it's like, well, what about the Raptures? And it's like, well, YOLO, we got to figure out where these guys are at. And the only way to do it is to apparently set off all our flares. And so we do that, and we fight through, like, the first wave of Raptures that come. And as we prep for the second, we have Neon use her supervision, and she sees something far off in the distance, and it's Boom on a billboard. And it's like, all right, let's move. So we rush over there, and we find Alig, and she's all right. Her and Trony are super excited to see each other. We introduce her to to Drilly and Fragile, and we ask about Hammering and Liverin, and she's like, I don't know where they're at. Then Drilly gets, like, super angry about, sassy about her abandoning them and not caring about them, and then Alig's like, you need to shut the F up and listen to me. So we go back in time to after the elevator, like, collapsed down, and she talks about how, like, the elevator was crashing down, and somehow they were all able to survive without any issues. I mean, Hammering still has all the crystals, like, in her arm, but her and Liverin were able to get out. And they were talking to Hammering about, like, hey, we got to fix this arm situation. And Hammering's like, I'll be fine. And then Alig's like, all right, well, whatever we're doing, we should get the move on. And Liverin's like, well, we're lost, so we should probably stay in one place and not move around, because that's usually what you do when you're lost, so people can find you again. And then Alig's like, yeah, except for that. And she points, and there's a whole bunch of Raptures coming at them because of the crash of the crystal, and so they got to vamoose because none of them are really fighters. So they are able to get to like a safe area, and they're talking about how to get out, and they're also talking about Hammering's arm, and like they're super concerned about it, except Hammering seems like whatever about it. And what they might do, and then the unknown just like wanders in, and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And she's like, "What are you doing here? Get out of here!" And then Elig and Liverin and Hammering are able to like calm her down enough to be like, "Hey, we are trying to get out of here. Like, since you showed up, all we want to do is leave. You want us to leave. If you can just point us the right direction and get us going, we will get out of here, and we will leave you alone. We have no interest in being here." Like, and then the unknown, instead of responding, just like turns around and starts walking. And the assumption is that, like, follow me out of here. And then you hear like a click of like a camera taking a picture, and it's Liverin taking a picture with her phone. And the unknown turns around and fires her blast at them. And so they all duck, and then they run. And we come back to the present, and Alig explains that the unknown used a flashbang, and the flashbang, because of electricity or something, anyway, the crystals like shot back at them, and that the three of them got separated, and that she ended up by herself and just kind of hung tight. And then Fragile starts asking questions about the picture, like why was she taking the picture, what's going on with that, and then she makes some sketchy comment about needing to take it to live. And Ainz is like, "Yeah, Liverin was playing with the phone a lot. What's up with that?" And then Fragile gets like super quiet and doesn't want to explain further. And we're like, "All right, well, let's go to the last place that Alig remembered being with all three of them." So we travel, and Shifty does like a medical check on Alig's condition. She's got some minor core output decreases, but otherwise she's fine, which is good. We then talk about more about the operation device. Okay, so we didn't talk about it before; it just got brought up before, because this is the part where, like, no, it's the whole thing. It's like, man, too bad the phones don't work this far away from the Ark, but the operation device does, because it's built on like a better like Skynet, or not Skynet. What's that thing called that Elon Musk uses? Starlink. It's like a Starlink thing or something. They don't use satellites necessarily, but the range is like super strong, and it's mysterious ancient tech from like 56 years ago. And this is where we learned that it was New Hope, and we make some comment about like, "Oh, so it's like my predecessor." And then Shifty's like, "What?" And we're like, "Nothing, nothing, nothing," because no one knows that we're like in touch with Johan, right? We're trying to keep that in the DLs. Less people that know the better. Because Shifty doesn't know anything about Eden or Johan or anything like that. And that Shifty mentions, this is where she mentions she's trying to get more operation devices, but they're hard to produce or something. Then Drill interrupts this conversation to ask about Hammering and how she's doing. Alig is like, no, she was not doing well. So we decide to pick up the pace. And when we get to the last known location, as we're going, we think about to ourselves how we, like, Fragile's leading us, and we're not going to go up with Fragile because she's in the very front, and that's like the most dangerous position in case the Raptors attack. There's like a fall or whatever. And so we think about how we don't know anything. We're like watching Fragile and thinking about how like we don't know anything about her, Liverin, and how they're, we noticed that, Liverin was wearing like top of the line designs and how she was well kept. And then Fragile's like the complete opposite. Like she's got holes in her clothes and she just looks kind of like a mess. And then while we're like staring at her and walking, and Rappy steps in front of us and like, "What are you looking at?" And we're like, "Oh, we're looking at Fragile's butt. She's got a hole in it." And then Rappy's like, "Yeah," she's like, "Yeah, humans have holes in their butts. That's the whole thing. And we're designed to be like humans, so that's why she has a hole in it." And we're like, "No, that's not what I meant. It's like in her clothes." And then Ainz and Neon like step up and they're like, "What are you staring at her clothes for?" And then the whole thing becomes like a comedy sketch about like, no, I'm not trying to look at her butt and like this and that and like, pay attention to this, and like the whole thing's like ridiculous. Like, no, we're just trying to talk about like what we're talking about is that Liverin's dressed super nice and Fragile's like holes in her clothes, and then anyway, hilarity ensues. After that whole sketch, Elig then begins to talk about everything that she knows she's been thinking about with the crystals and stuff, and how they're all designed to like route power to a central location. And she points out like in the ground there's these like lines, like these power lines from crystal to crystal that are all leading to like a central location, and that it seems like there's a huge amount of storage of power. And then someone says like, "Well, what could you do with all that power?" And Alig turns it on them and says, "What couldn't you do with all that power? It's like the immense amount of power. You could pretty much do anything you wanted." And it kind of goes back to like her previous conversation, like 2 campaign chapters ago, where she was talking about how like, hey, these things are like super batteries. Like you could like store a lot in these crystals, and then they could be used to like power the Ark for like a long time. Anyway, so we get to the place. and find the unknown because she's crushed under some crystals. So we're like, hey, we're gonna go check on her. And everyone's like, no, it's a bad idea. She's a bad guy. Blah blah blah. And we're like, yeah, whatever. We love Nikki's. We're gonna take care of this. So we walk up to her alone and ask if she wants help. And she's like, get out of here, betrayers. I don't trust humans. You're all deceitful. And we're like, okay, we're gonna get these Nikki's over here to help you then. So we go over and we go back and forth with all the girls and finally convince them to rescue her. And part of it is that we mentioned that she never actually tried to hurt us. It was always like to get us to move away, to confuse us. It was never like a direct attack. It was always nearby attacks or like, distractions and stuff so she'd get away. So, and then we talk also about like the sarcophagus or the coffin that she's like on top of that she's walking around. And so then the girls finally go like rescue her. And then we have a little conversation with her. She reveals that Hammering came back to like fight with her, and that like Hammering like knocked a blast from the unknown into the wall, and that's what caused the cave in on top of her. But then Hammering's like, I'm gonna go get some help and I'll be back to save you. And then she wandered off, and then we showed up like shortly thereafter or something. And she hasn't returned. So she points, once she's rescued him out of the whole thing, she's like, oh yeah, she went that way. And so Drilly like races off, and we thank her and follow. And then after we're gone, she's standing by herself, the unknown, and she thinks about how long it's been since someone like spoke to her or thanked her. Shifty then speaks up to us and is like, hey, shouldn't we have talked to her a little bit more, inquired more? And we're like, nah, it's enough. Like, she's doing her thing. If she doesn't want to tell us, we don't need to like press or really get involved with that. And then Aleg starts thinking about like the coffin thing she's carrying around. And then we're like, oh yeah, it's a medical supplies. It's clearly like cryogenic or like an incubator of some kind or both for a Nikke or a human, yada, yada. And we spat out a bunch of electronic knowledge. And then Aleg and Trona get like all hot and bothered about our electronic knowledge and how much we're paying attention. Like, how do you know all this stuff? How are you doing this? And we're like, oh, one of our seniors, which is Johan, got us like interested in learning more about this and that. And then we just like spent a lot of time like investigating on our own and got a lot of information. They're like, oh my gosh, we have a new member of our squad. And they start planning dates with us. And then Rappy's like, all right, never mind, back to the present. Shutting it down again. And then kind of the main point of that whole conversation is that whatever she's carrying, she cares about more than life, because when we found her crushed by crystals, she was on top of like the coffin. Like, so she was trying to protect the coffin from the crystals burying into it. And so that, what is that? Right. Anyway. And then we start to talk with Drilly about Hammering wanting to help the unknown. And Drilly goes into this whole thing about how great a person Hammering is and how she gets taken advantage of all the time because she's so nice and she's so willing to trust people and stuff like that. And how it usually ends up, there's a lot of people who will take advantage of that, but Drilly's there. And part of the reason Drilly has like this hard like exterior, hard way of dealing with things is because she has to protect Hammering from getting taken advantage of by like these douchebags and whatnot. And so together they're a good team, right? And then we also talk about like what the mission she was on. The mission she was on was getting some like crystals or something or some rare gems to sell because they need money, and kind of like Hammering said, they're not in like a good spot. Follow her. Oh, and then she talks a lot about following her conscience and doing the right thing. And then Ides has this whole conversation about like, why don't you just steal jewels instead of like spending all this time mining them out? And then Drilly's like, I couldn't do that. I couldn't live with myself. Blah blah blah. And we get some strong character development between Ides and or Anise and and Drilly, where Anise is more like kind of like do whatever you can to survive, and Drilly's like, no, I'd almost rather be dead than have to like sacrifice my thing. And that's why her and Hammering get along so well as well, because they both like very moral people who have very strong consciences when it comes to what's right and what's wrong and doing the things they need to do. And then Fragile has some sketchy thing, like if they had a choice to be true to their conscience or survive, what would they do? And she's like, I don't know, but I'd hope I'd follow my conscience instead, right? At that point, we come to this large area that is like covered in glass, and there's an immense amount of energy, and it's like so powerful that it's like hard to look at because it's so bright, and Neon has to turn off her like glasses thing. And this is the area where the energy lines are all going. And then everyone's standing around kind of walking and looking. We're like in an open area. And then Neon's like, this is just like a boss arena video game. And then a crystal rapture like pops up. And Anise is like, Neon, you gotta cut it out. This is getting too ridiculous. So we we're like, we can't fight it here because if it breaks the glass, we're all screwed because it'll like electrocute us super bad. And so Drilly's like, I got this. And she activates like her fire drill or whatever, which is like way back at the beginning when Drilly first showed up, Neon was like, oh, do your drills like shoot rockets or can you rocket blast? And she's like, no. And then she literally like rocket blasts her drill attack into this thing, knocking it against the wall so we can all go fight it away from like the glass ground. And Neon and Anise are like, oh my gosh, that's so bad. Hey, you can totally do the rocket blast. You lied to us. Why'd you lie to us? And then, yeah, it's like, why did you tell us the truth the first time? And Drilly's like, because of this. And then she runs off. And I was like, what? So translation was bad. Anyway, so everyone follows except Fragile, who pulls us aside for a moment. And she's like, are you really going to, so one of the things I forgot to mention is that our deal with the unknown is that we're going to delete the photo that Liverin took, right? Because that's part of the reason she was upset was that Liverin took this photo of her and she doesn't want any kind of record of her or what's going on or anything. And we're like, yeah, we promise we'll delete it. And she's like, are you really going to delete that photo from Liverin's phone? We're like, yeah, of course. We said we would. And she's like, well, what if, how about you just let me take care of Liverin and you don't worry about it. And we're like, well, I don't know anything about you guys. Like, what are you going to do? Why are you going to do it? Why do you want to take care of yourself? Like, what's going on with that? And she's like, never mind, and runs off. And then we're like, okay, this is getting way too sketch. So then we contact Shifty, and we're like, hey, can I get information on squad members? And she's like, yeah. And we're like, I want all the information we could possibly get on Fragile and Liverin, on their past missions and stuff. And then Shifty gets concerned because she's like, that might involve some people in the military, and they might not be happy about you digging around in, like, their stuff. And are you still okay with that? And we're like, yeah, send it. And so we get that going. And that wraps up Chapter 29, Rescue. And we'll find out what happens to Hammering and Liverin in the next chapter in 2 weeks. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.